What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bituation Room. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. It is July, baby. And did I call it or did I not call it? Anything can happen this year, and anything will happen this year, except for things that have happened thus far that feel very predictable and preventable. And we will discuss them in the next hour and 15 to 20. I am really excited to get into all the things. Obviously, what is happening with Joe Biden and being the nominee for the Democratic Party. Yes, no, maybe. What does Jill think? Also, the now kingmakers of the Supreme Court that have ruled that presidents, but really specifically Donald Trump, if we could just like put an asterisk and just say that it's Trump, because they don't. Presidents are above the law. So we'll be digging into all of that. And what is it like to be a journalist trying to hold this State Department accountable for its very slim PR cover for Israel's war crimes, its commitment to human rights, its commitment to investigation, as we are almost 10 months into genocide. What's it like? Well, Prem Thakker is here, a reporter from The Intercept, and I'm very excited to have him discuss that. And then for everything else, Caitlin Durante, a comedian and writer and co-host of the Bechdel cast, is here for the first time. Both of these first-time guests on such a big Tuesday. Really, really excited. And of course, if that all sounds grim, don't worry. We're going to be ending the show with a round of what's good, where we all talk about how we like rainbows and, lollipops and gumdrops or whatever, however it goes. But anyway, if you are here, you know what to do. Like and share the stream if you're live. If you're listening from the future, does Joe Biden drop out? Is it Buttigieg? Tell me now. And give this podcast 5 stars wherever you're listening. We are 996 reviews away from 4, which, if you do the math in reverse, is 1,000 reviews. We're giving away a free t-shirt to the 1,000th reviewer, people. Is it scientific? Not really, because sometimes the reviews disappear and it's weird. But if you're on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review and put something that isn't too coded as your name, and we will get you a t-shirt 4 reviews away. It could be you right now. Right now. And of course, make sure that you support this show by becoming a patron. Patreon.com/bituationroom is how you go and do that. And you get a bunch of perks, discounts on merch, 20% off, get your own goddamn t-shirt. You get discounts on the American Prospect magazine, which I write for every single edition. You also get access to the bonus episodes, which happen every single Wednesday, free to stream. But if you want to listen back, you got to become a patron. Listen or watch back, become a patron. They're posted on Patreon. You get your own RSS feed. It's adorable. It's rainbow colored. All the cute things to all the cutest people who are the patrones. And with that, enough fucking around. Let's do this. Let's get into it. This is What Are You Bitching About? Oh, also, Matt Leave and I are going to be in Chicago for the DNC August 19th and August 20th. We're going to be doing a live podcast, Bad Hasbara and Bituation Room mashup on the Monday the 19th. And then on Tuesday the 20th, we're going to be doing live stand-up. So get your tickets, francescafiorentini.com, or in the link in whatever description you are consuming this piece of content on. It should be there. Very excited for that. Tickets are already selling pretty fast, and I'm already like, oh shit, I think we needed a bigger boat. You know what I'm saying? What's that from? Caitlin can tell me. But let me just bitch about something really, really quick, and I'll bring in my guests and find out what they're bitching about. You know, I'm not having fun anymore doing political punditry. I know what you're saying, Francesca. Was it ever fun? What the fuck are you talking about? Yeah, you know, for a while, it was like, I don't know, the good fight is still on, and there's still room for hope. And, Democrats seem to be sort of growing their ranks, especially progressive Democrats, and that's good. And I'm not completely jaded, but boy, oh boy, the last 2 weeks have been like, I should just be a yoga instructor. I should, look. How many times has a yoga instructor been trolled incessantly by the far right? Probably more times than I'd care to investigate, but you know what I'm saying. Why don't I just not do anything related to politics? Because shit is super grim. Not only are Democrats completely on their back foot against a candidate that should be so easy to effing beat. He basically beats himself every single damn day. But because they're feckless, rudderless, and have no leadership and trust the process / money, and a lot of that money is funneling back into ousting their own, i.e. Jamal Bowman, it just feels like I can't lose for this long. And I'm not going to join the right. I'm not going to join a bunch of, bully winners, but you can't lose for this long. I'm just going to get, hyper local, focus on me and, the border disputes in my own home. You know what I'm saying? So I am so tired of this. What we're going to get into right now is so morally defeating and deflating. Potentially things will change later this year, but it's all very scary, and especially when you're trying to think about raising a family without, an EPA or anyone to regulate toxins in our water. Oops, to say nothing of reproductive rights. And then finally, it's so boring. It's so annoying, the fact that the right can't just be honest. They can't just be like, yeah, we like fascism. We like authoritarianism. We love kings. He can do whatever he wants. He's king. We're in a cult. We won. Instead, they have to gaslight you, pretend that's not what they want, pretend, I know you are, but what am I, you to death? And just every accusation is a confession, and you just got to keep on trying to hold the little truth flag against mofos who can't even admit that they've been given what they wanted by the Supreme Court. They've been given what they wanted by these billionaires. They've been giving everything that they wanted, and they're just like, well, actually, it's based on precedent. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up and be honest. You want a Christian nationalist ethno-state. You want to get rid of all women's rights. You want to keep women in the kitchen because then your dick will grow by an inch, and it definitely will not. Just be honest. But they can't even be, no one's being honest. That's my problem. So it's not fun anymore. It's very serious and scary now. And also, the last thing I'm going to bitch about is it's the most third world thing. The right loves to throw around, oh, we're like a third world country now. You know what the most third world shit ever? You know what the most military junta ass shit is? It's dissolving the judicial system. It's basically making all of the judiciary under your thumb, putting them under your thumb, letting them change the laws so you can run for re-election again, do whatever the F you want, kill somebody. Donald Trump made this country a so-called third world nation. And third world nations are usually created by the United States. Anywho, let's move on. Let's bring in, for the rest of the show, I'm going to shut up. She's a writer. She's a comedian. She's a co-host of the Bechdel Cast podcast. Please welcome Caitlin Durante.
Hello.
Caitlin.
Okay. What's up? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I took too long to bitch about that.
No, I loved it. Number one, the movie reference was obviously Jaws.
Yes, it was.
Any others you want to quiz me on? That's really, truly the only thing I'm able to talk about with any coherence. Number two, this is why I do a movie podcast, what you were bitching about, because I can just watch nice little movies and talk about them, and that's my job. And I don't have to, and I say this not lightly, but I honestly don't engage that much with specific political things. Like I'm not constantly like, what's happening in current events, what's happening in politics, because it will, like, suicidal ideation, it'll just happen more for me. So I can't be doing that. And number three, I'm really curious about the what, I forget what you said, but within your own home, the border disputes. Yeah, what's that all about?
I think it's mostly like the line between like the adults and our baby. Just like
okay, yeah.
You can't just grab onto me every time like the trash guy goes by, the trash truck.
Fair. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. You're colonizing. You're being really colonial now, 1.5-year-old baby. Yeah. But Caitlin, other than, I think, rubbing it in my face that you do a cool movie podcast, what are you bitching about today?
Oh boy. I'm bitching about dating in the context of finding people who align with you politically. So I'm a single person. I'm out there on these apps trying to find people to smooch.
Ooh.
And yeah, okay, watch out, world. And it's really hard to find people who you align with politically on these apps. Like as a leftist, progressive person, well, first of all, I am cursed with heterosexuality. So
that was a follow-up, and I was gonna be like, I'm sorry. And you are in Los Angeles?
Yes. So the odds are very stacked against me.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, this is a liberal bubble. Surely I can find people. But the answer is no, not really. So some of the apps, like, you can set a filter to have, like, to only show you liberal people, because some of these apps have part of the profile that you fill out to be like, oh, this is like, these are my political leanings, this is my zodiac sign, blah, blah, blah. So some of the apps let you filter that, and that doesn't even really work half the time. But
you're like, I said no, anarcho-communist Leos. I've been in one too many relationships.
Right, but they keep seeping through. But like Hinge, for example, you have to like pay extra to be able to like set those filters. So I see everyone. And what I'm normally seeing is, I think that probably the most frequent thing is either people who list themselves as moderate or people who list themselves as not political. And so I'm just like, good for you that you have so much privilege that you don't have to even pretend to care about politics. Everyone, like, it's impossible, basically. And I think a lot of people don't consider like a match in political ideology as an important factor in compatibility. People like, especially men, they just like straight men just don't care about that very much.
Vote the way I vote. I'll tell you how to think. You'll listen to me ramble on about who I think should run. And well, I think here's the other thing, maybe silver lining for when you see moderate or not political is like, oh, he's got a real job. Like he might have money. Like it might be working at some awful consulting firm or in finance, but at least there will be money. You know what I'm saying?
So I could date them for their money, secretly redistribute it.
Yes.
Like steal it and be like, I want to go on a shopping spree. But then,
but fund the revolution. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. Good plan, actually.
So we're going to get, I write for the American Prospect, and they've done a whole issue about junk fees and basically just charges, the way corporations are gouging you. And it's just so funny. Of course, it's come to dating apps when it comes to like, oh, you want an extra filter, you're going to have to pay a little bit more than that. And you're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
seriously.
And it is, and this time it's probably primordial. Like, it's very important that someone believes whatever Donald Trump is a piece of shit, or like is a, you know, I think liberal's a dirty word, but I know I'm sure progressive is available to everybody.
You would think, but well, that's the other thing. Like it'll the filters will be like conservative, moderate, liberal, not political. Those are the only choices. And I'm like, I don't even consider myself liberal. Like, can you put like
eat the rich, not eat
yeah,
the rich.
exactly. Right. Like, can we have more categories? Like the political spectrum is vaster than what these dating apps think
will allow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, they're all spawned from Silicon Valley, the place where people cannot actually muster eye contact and don't actually know how to, you know, get dates.
So true. So basically my solution is just to be single forever.
I think that's beautiful. I think brave actually is what I was going to say, but I really think that I'm someone who's like, I couldn't vacation alone. Where would I put my thoughts?
I do it all the time. It's actually very liberating to like go places by yourself.
I think it's very fucking cool. Well, before I bring my next guest in, Caitlin, I forgot to do the one thing I'm supposed to do, which is tell all of our audience about the advertiser that we have on this show. I don't know if you know this, but I've been cursed by going on Piers Morgan. I've been hit up by them. I've tried to, you know, leave. I've tried to quit, but they keep on coming back, and I just keep on putting a little coin into the Piers Morgan slot machine. And so I've been going on Piers Morgan, and I get paired with like a bunch of like literal ghouls, just like freshly dug up from the grave, reanimated, you know, with like lightning. And they're on with me, and I feel my blood pressure go up all the time. However, the other day I was on, and I took a Sunset Lake CBD focus gummy that has 25 milligrams of CBD, lion's mane, and cordyceps. And not only was I sharp and focused at 8:30 in the morning, but also calm as I felt my blood pressure rise. I could also feel the CBD going, no. And it was lovely. And I could stomach this whole appearance with the likes of whatever ghouls I don't even want to mention. But the point is that sunsetlakecbd.com, everybody. You know what it is. You know I love them. And, you know, they help me sleep. CBD and CBN is a good night oil mix. Wait, hang on. Let me find this. And it's great. Whenever you're trying to sleep and you're like, I just need to think like weird thoughts where you're about to fall asleep when you're like, why is that clown on the cloud or whatever? You know what I mean? That's what their CBD, CBN oil helps me with. It gets me to that other place. sunsetlakecbd.com, everybody. Coupon code FRANTIFA, FRANTIFA, for 20% off your order. And with that, let me bring in my next guest. They are a politics reporter for The Intercept. You can also find their work at The New Republic, The American Prospect, heard of them, and CNN. Please welcome Prem Thakker.
Oh, hello. How are we doing?
Prem, welcome. You've heard us bitch. This is Caitlin. I am me. What are you bitching about other than everything we're about to go into?
Yes. Well, firstly, thank you both for your reflections. I definitely was shaking my head in the back room. I think, to your point, given we're going to talk a lot about what my day job actually covers, I thought I would talk about something I've been thinking about a lot lately. You know, I moved to DC about a year and a half ago and some change. And
I'm sorry.
And you know, it's actually treated me pretty nice. Besides the fact that I'm always surrounded by politics, a lot of people are very nice. The city itself is very livable, so I do like it a lot.
Okay, cool. No,
that's so okay.
Talking shit up top.
That's so okay. But that means I'm meeting a lot of people, which is also very fun. And I've been thinking a lot about small talk lately. And I'm actually not an anti-small talk person. Some people find it kind of meaningless or shallow or something that they look down upon. I kind of find it to be, part of a social glue it kind of makes life feel more open. It gives
Of
you
course.
a taste of someone's day-to-day life, and that's kind of an easy bridge to getting to know someone better if you want to.
Yeah.
But it's also just an easy way to remind yourself that there's other people that exist. It brings you out into the world with very minimal effort. And
I feel like there's another shoe that's going to drop here.
Yes.
Because I was about to just herald small talk. I was like, you don't want to launch into childhood trauma. That's
Well, I was just going to say that despite that being the intention of small talk, it seems like, I mean, I don't want to speak for other people, but I think a lot of us kind of put a lot more stakes into it than it needs to be had. So, for instance, if you're talking to someone about their hobbies, I feel like I felt this for sure, that there's this kind of impulse that, this answer matters a lot because what you do is who you are. You're comprised of the things that you do on a routine basis. To lack things that are your capital H hobbies means you're, somehow lacking as a person generally. Or think about like favorites, like what's your favorite fill in the blank. Right. I feel like there's also this weird self-pressure to have this very good answer. You put all these self-imposed stakes. When you're just having like very friendly conversation, ostensibly meant to just, talk about things you like. So I think given how much, based on what we're going to talk about, there's enough things to worry about as is, I think there's ways we could just make small talk, be a bit more enjoyable.
Yeah.
So like, for instance, when I'm asking about your hobbies, I might say, what have you gotten up to lately? Tell me about your past, 5 days. Things that kind of, I can very much, like, you could take that question wherever you want to. Whereas like, there's no like absolutist, like I need to have X, Y, and Z answer. Otherwise it's unfulfilling for the question.
I mean, Caitlin does a movie podcast, but I think coming in hot to a conversation going, what's your favorite movie is like some real 9-year-old energy. You know what I mean? Like you don't.
Hey now.
No, I mean, if you have a podcast specifically about that, that's great because that's, maybe medium talk.
Sure.
You're going into that knowing what's happening.
But that's why I think how have you been is very like, especially for a new conversation, like how have you been?
Yeah.
But it's true. The what do you do is a thing I actually I unlearned when I lived abroad. And I relearned when I came back to the States, which is so overly focused on work and nobody has any free time, that what do you do is synonymous with who you are as a person and your entire fucking identity. Usually it's related to how you make money, unless you're allergic to it like I am. Yeah. And so there's like, it is just kind of a really cold, like, what do you do? It's like, no, how are you enjoying your summer?
Yeah. Like, I guess that's exactly right. It's just like these questions, ideally, as a question asker, I just want to get to know things that make you happy, things that you find to be nice. So in that,
we're gonna have this question later. I'm asking you what's good, which I think is a great icebreaker. Yeah. So hold that thought while we talk about a bunch of things that are bad.
Holding.
Okay. I love that though. I love that a lot, Prem. All right, well, let's get into it, guys. A lot of things happen, but in my world, only 2. This is the week where. Okay, so this was the week where nearly 250 years after successfully overthrowing a monarchy, the United States is rushing back to one as the Supreme Court ruled that presidents have absolute immunity from prosecution if they're performing official acts. Now, who decides whether they're performing official acts? They do, of course. Right? Obviously, that is a no-brainer. But however, if the president is off duty, like they're an off-duty president, like in the evenings and they're like at a bar and they get into a fist fight with someone who is like a Chiefs fan, like that's not an official act because that's an off-duty president. So that they could end up in the drunk tank and that would be super legit. Anyway, in a 6-3 decision in Trump v. United States, it determined, or the majority determined, the conservative majority determined that any action taken by the president under the authority given to him by the Constitution is, quote, conclusive and preclusive. What is preclusive? And thus, he cannot be prosecuted. I wrote down he, but it could be anyone. Remember, we're making kings and queens. Anything that is an official act cannot be prosecuted. And so just to take you guys a little bit more deeper, bear with me while I take you through a Vox article. So what are the things that are official? Well, private conversations between the president and the majority opinion written by John Roberts details how broad that immunity is in practice. Roberts claims that Trump is immune from prosecution for conversations between himself and high-ranking Justice Department officials, where he urged them to pressure the states to replace their legitimate electors with fraudulent members of the Electoral College who would vote to install Trump for a second term. Remember, this entire case was because Trump's attorney said, well, Trump was the president, so he could technically do whatever he wanted, including January 6th and trying to overturn the election. And so they were like, okay. Elsewhere in the opinion, Roberts suggests that any conversation between Trump and one of his advisors or subordinates could not be the basis for prosecution, and explaining why Trump's attempts to pressure Vice President Mike Pence to fraudulently alter the election results likely cannot be prosecuted. For example, Roberts points to the fact that the vice president frequently serves, quote, as one of the president's closest advisors. In other words, official act. Robert's second conclusion is that the presidents also enjoy, and get this, a very at least a presumptive immunity from criminal prosecution for a president's acts within the outer perimeter of his official responsibility. Thus, if a president's action even touches on his official authority, the quote, outer perimeter of that authority, then the president enjoys a strong presumption of immunity from prosecution. So again, we're still not in unofficial acts, just the outer perimeter of official. I don't know why I keep on thinking my mind is like Bill Clinton telling Monica that it's official, like while it's going on. I'm just like, it was official, you know? I don't know how to do a Clinton.
It just sounds to me like yeah. The president can now just like do a purge every day, like the movie The Purge, just doing that every day for their whole term with complete impunity.
Well, I mean, unless they say this is unofficial. Today, I'm feeling unofficial, and so I'm going to kill thousands of people unofficially.
Well, but isn't the whole thing that like the definition of what's official and what's unofficial is so blurry?
Sure, but maybe they want to just kind of play with you. But yes, that's exactly the point. So, and the entire thing is not your mind, you look at the case and you're like, wait, why is everyone talking about assassination? Well, that's because Trump's defense attorney straight up said that actually would be included in some kind of presidential immunity. And that's the question that loomed over this case. The judge asked if Trump could be, this was the judge, sorry, but his lawyer answered. The judge asked if he could be prosecuted if he ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival. And Trump's lawyer answered that he could not, unless Trump had previously been successfully impeached and convicted for doing so. Yeah, sure. And that Robert's opinion apparently goes even farther than even that. So if presidential authority is conclusive and preclusive when the president exercises the constitutionally granted powers, the court appears to have ruled that yes, Trump could order the military to assassinate one of his political opponents and nothing can be done to him for it because he's the commander-in-chief of the Army, Navy. We've legalized military juntas. We've legalized coups, but it's so like it's in that fancy font. So it's like, it's chill. There are unofficial acts, before I kick this over to you, Prem. Roberts does concede the president may be prosecuted for unofficial acts. So, Caitlin Naysayer, if Trump had personally attempted to shoot and kill then presidential candidate Joe Biden in the lead up to the 2020 election, rather than ordering a subordinate to do so, then Trump could probably be prosecuted for murder. So if he actually pulled the trigger. So don't say that this is absolute. But
so sorry.
Yeah, please. Prem, the highest court in the land. Here we go.
What's just amazing to think about, or amazing, perhaps mind-numbing, whatever adjective you'd like to choose, is that it's very wild to consider that, this is a 6-3 decision. Trump had appointed 3 of the justices who not only helped rule on this case, but also on helping overturn abortion rights, on helping free America from corporate America, rather, from regulation, the same court that just ruled that homeless people can be considered criminals for sleeping outside, while I guess apparently presidents who commit crimes are immune from that or any such misdeed. It's just like the compounding ways that this guy got to pick 3 justices to then say he's immune from anything he could do, all while, of course, even further, he didn't win the popular vote. Like, it's just like cascading examples of how this country not only defers to power so often, but that power can just kind of make rules as it goes, even if a majority of the people, whether like by voting or just by their opinion, would disagree with them.
Yeah.
It's just such a, like, so much in 2 weeks that underlines all of it.
Yeah, and I think the word is corruption. It's pure, unadulterated corruption. It's bribery. It's, again, it is a coup on every single level. This is the judicial branch consolidating not only their power, but the power of the executive. And their power within the, the Chevron doctrine and overturning that. So basically, regulatory agencies like the EPA can no longer, regulate and do what they do. They're not the experts anymore. The courts are the experts, which is wild to me. I thought maybe it kicked with the Chevron doctrine, I thought it kicked to the legislature, but no, it's just the courts, back to the courts. They're going to be ruling on every single, toxin and whether or not that's legal or not. Like, it'll be up to them, not up to scientists, biologists, anybody, whatever, climatologists to regulate our environment. That's just one aspect of it. But anyway, tis a dark day, guys. It's bad. And I wanted to show that, Elie Mystal always has a way of putting things. And so I appreciated his writing in The Nation. Says, unlike other officials, presidents are now entitled to absolute immunity from criminal charges. Even a cop can be charged with, say, murder, hence my bad off-duty joke, even if they argue that killing people is part of their jobs, but not presidents. Presidents can murder, rape, steal, and pretty much do whatever they want, so long as they argue that murdering, raping, or stealing is part of the official job of the president of the United States. There's no crime that pierces the veil of absolute immunity. I mean, it kind of is, but usually it's killing people over there, sometimes here. Now, the other thing is how intractable this is. So Elie writes, and then there's essentially nothing we can do to change it. The courts created qualified immunity for public officials, but it can be undone by state or federal legislatures if they pass a law removing that protection. Not so with absolute presidential immunity. The court here says that absolute immunity is required by separation of powers inherent in the Constitution, meaning the Congress cannot take it away. Congress, according to the Supreme Court, does not have the power to pass legislation saying the president can be prosecuted for crimes. Impeachment, and only impeachment, is the way to punish presidents, and somewhat obviously impeachment does nothing to a president who already is no longer in office, right? Nor one who was in office and was impeached twice, but not actually removed by the vote. But you guys, AOC is now introducing supposedly articles of impeachment against Supreme Court justices. I was like, all of them? I'm assuming Alito and Clarence Thomas, to Prem, your point of them not recusing themselves, even though they were completely A-okay with what happened on January 6th. And we're like, let's go, release the Kraken. But here's my question, Caitlin.
Yeah.
What should Biden do with his newfound immunity?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't think he will do this, but this is what he should do, is call for the assassination of, and make sure it's executed, of the 6 Supreme Court justices who, ruled this. And then that'll show them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then they'll learn their lesson, because they'll be dead and the president won't be prosecuted for it.
Let's go, Dark Brett. Just put a bounty on their fucking heads. Like, seriously, like, I don't believe in violence except for these 6 people. You know what I'm saying? And no, neither, obviously, Caitlin has less to worry about, but Prem does not condone what I just said. It's a comedy podcast. But yeah,
I'm serious. I'm not even joking.
But yeah, well, this is the thing. Part of me was like, well, he should, universal health care and raise the minimum wage. It's like, no, Francesca, crimes. Think crimes. What should Biden do criminally? Prem, any ideas of what Biden should do, even though he won't do any of these things?
I mean, it's tough because this is just a microcosm of what seems to be a broader conversation over and over again of just a very structural incongruity into what Republicans do with power versus what Democrats do with power. And Republicans, I mean, especially buttressed by all the structural advantages they have with regards to things like the Electoral College and so on, that gives them power that maybe in a truly wholly democratic society they might not necessarily have. They use that power even if one might call it unearned. Whereas even if Democrats earn power and get people's votes, there's always some sort of secondary sort of request or thing on the horizon to say, once we get X more votes, we can then do Y abstract thing. And I think this is all the more highlighted by, what you pulled from Ellie's article about just the idea that the court says that Congress is not allowed to sort of just essentially disagree with what they're saying.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so we have three branches of government. We were told that they check and balance each other. One of them is just saying, too bad, so sad. You can't actually put a check on us, even though we are 9 people unelected, and you ostensibly are people who are elected.
Yep.
And then so there's a stalemate there. Not that there should be. I think Congress could still act. There's nothing that necessarily says that they can't anyways, like with tools like impeachment and so on.
Right.
But also there's one other branch, which is the executive. And so beyond, procedural things, whether it's pursuing impeachment or pressing the judiciary committees to do more than just send angry letters, there's an expressive function to the presidency that has played either very small or very large roles, depending on who was there, who was in the chair. Yeah. And one thing that was a discussion in the primaries in 2020, one thing that's been a discussion since on any number of issues, from climate to labor to taking on corporations, is how far will Joe Biden go in saying the thing, whether the thing is like corporations expand the courts. Corporations can't dictate our politics. Corporations can't choose whether we can or cannot breathe clean air, whether our working people get to have a fair wage. And
Israel should be responsible for war crimes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so policy is just as much something that follows what the bounds of possibility are made to be. And those bounds of possibility are influenced by what politicians do and don't say.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of this, that beyond any sort of specific policy prescription that one could imagine, and there are quite a few, that it's not even being called for by the people with the most power is one of the biggest barriers from that even becoming something that's actually comes to fruition.
Right. I mean, speaking it into existence is the first step. And I think what's interesting is you're seeing this is the same week that people are speaking. I mean, they've been speaking this into existence for a long time, speaking the idea of Biden stepping down as the Democratic nominee for president. And they're saying it loudly. And it's not just progressives saying it. In fact, they're not leading the charge for that to happen. But then you have to, it's frustrating when this assault on our judicial system and this takeover, the far right takeover of the Supreme Court has been so in our faces for decades now. And it takes AOC to be like, I'm introducing articles of impeachment. This is a centrist position. Introducing articles of impeachment against 2 compromised justices is an absolutely centrist position right now. If our democracy was normal and functioning and healthy, that's what we would have done. And so I'm glad she's doing it, but it's so scary because you're like, oh, no, this is not consensus. This is not what people are writing a bunch of op-eds about. This is seen now as like a progressive thing to fight back versus what absolutely we should have done.
Yeah. And again, like just one other point is that, again, back to the sort of incongruities between the parties, Republicans will file articles of impeachment on virtually anything. They'll use the time that taxpayers pay for them to do their jobs to file articles on any number of things against any official that they can. Whereas Democrats have a very clear case of corruption that's been laid out over decades against at least 2, if not more, Supreme Court justices. And like you said, maybe a few will even say the word, and only 1 member of Congress is now actually doing the thing. Right. And so once again, it's just a reminder over and over again, not only are the incentives of the parties different, but their actual actions in response to those incentives also different.
Yeah. Or he could just like steal some cars. That'd be kind of sick, like I just feel like
he should test the waters. He should dip his toes just a little bit just to see what the response is.
I mean, if he stole a Cybertruck and was like presidential immunity, like, wouldn't that be a fun little stunt? Like, if Biden won't drop out, steal a Cybertruck, drive it around, leave it at like in the middle of a tarmac at an airport, and then be like, "Fuck you."
It happens in movies all the time where a
Exactly.
cop shows his little badge and he's like, I need this vehicle. Keanu Reeves did it in Speed, and it's happened dozens of times since. So the president should also think about it.
And it actually makes a point, at least. Like, at least you're actually communicating something. Like, if you think it's dumb, then show why it's dumb.
Right. Absolutely.
But
I love
right
that.
now, I guess we're not hearing much from him after all.
No, we're not. He did a very short press conference about it, but he is trying to bounce back, guys, because this is also the week where President Biden, he swung and missed many swings, many misses at his first debate with Donald Trump that he and his team wanted to happen, made happen, when it did, how it did, and probably at the time that it did, even though clearly it was past his bedtime. And now there is massive damage control happening from the Biden campaign because of how awful this debate performance was. I don't have clips from it, but we all remember even the easy questions were poorly answered. And then the most forceful of the strongest answers were all about Ukraine, which is like, okay, buddy, you can't give 3 answers about Ukraine. So I don't want to play those clips.
If only he had taken your CBD gummies to really be able to focus.
The lion's mane, exactly. The lion's mane, the cordyceps. I love that. Sunset Lake CBD for when this happens. Old man. Okay, but let's just go style, substance, form before we get into the backlash. Prem and Caitlin. Caitlin, let me start with you. What was your, like, when you watched this debate, if you subjected yourself to it?
Well, I certainly didn't actually watch it because I was like, I don't want to watch 2 old white dude fascists blabber at each other. And from my understanding, that's exactly what happened. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go see A Quiet Place Day 1 instead.
Dude, I think a lot of people were in the theater. I feel like everyone who, like, my brother was like, I saw Inside Out too. Fuck that. And I was like, yeah, that was probably the smart choice instead of streaming it live. Well, it was bad in form, substance, and style. Prem, I think my biggest thing was that not only did he demonstrate that he was old as hell and was like losing the train of thought and couldn't stick any landing and started rambling about like a migrant raping, like some migrant rape story rather than talking about abortion. It's that even if he had crushed every single answer, his answers were still, sort of Caitlin's point, kind of just stock centrist. I'm tough on the border. I'm tougher on this war. Like he had no commanding vision. There was no even a fucking catchphrase. People make fun of Kamala Harris for a catchphrase. At least she has one. Like, there was no vision. There was no like defining like some way to organize his thoughts to come back. It's like when you're stand-up, right? It's like you got your thesis, come back to your thesis. Women be shopping. How? Go back to the, you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't even have the women be shopping line.
Stealing my material.
Exactly. Sorry, Kate. But Prem, what did you think?
What's striking is that if you look just at the substance, beyond, all the miscues that you just listed about Biden's own messaging, Trump was not only so low energy, he was, some would say well-behaved, but as we know, well-behaved women don't make history, as we've learned over and over again. But he, just so low energy, not even getting into the fact of his racist comments, his xenophobic comments, his anti-Palestinian comments, et cetera, his, outright lies. You couldn't even count them on all of your fingers and toes. But even despite that, it was just so unfortunate to see what you're describing, which is just over and over again, Biden either walking through answers kind of listlessly or not returning to a central thesis, as you say quite rightly. It was just, this was meant to be a moment of reassurance, a moment that despite all these concerns of his age, about whether, he's up for the job, about even just his policy on Israel's war in Gaza, on immigration and so on. This was a moment where he could take those issues, take ownership over them, contrast him. You say, he kind of adopted centrist framing on immigration, which is a good point as well. He did almost the exact opposite in all those things.
Yeah.
And even on the abortion question, as you mentioned too, just loading into what perhaps seemed like a canned answer he was going to later say about immigration by mentioning that instance, then just combining it into what should be one of his main issues of a person's right to choose, people's agency and bodily autonomy over their own bodies. Something that Trump, of course, that's probably one of his weakest points. Yeah. Conversely, Trump over and over again every single answer was about immigration over and over again.
Yep.
And of course, in some ways very blatant, where he would be asked about childcare and he would just go back to immigration. Of course, dodging questions.
Childcare, climate change, should there be a Palestinian state?
All
3 answers that when it was punted to him, he said, I just want to go back to the other thing, and how he's letting go undocumented, basically people in mental institutions, he's dumping them out, emptying them out, and allowing them to all get citizenship. That's it was just like, what are you talking about? And it was funny because, I don't know. I think obviously on climate and on, childhood education and on abortion rights, Biden does have better answers than that. He couldn't even be like, Definitely. You can't answer the question.
Definitely.
Look at you pivoting. Look at you ignoring it and telling some lie. Answer the damn question. What's your plan for the climate? He couldn't even do that. And I'm not a debater. I've been bad in debates. And even I'm like, oh, come on, dog, But okay, so the real thing is the fallout. And the fact is that everyone from the New York Times, op-ed editorial board saying Biden needs to leave the race, to the DSA, Biden needs to leave the race. What we've been saying for months, and the DSA has far better critiques than someone like the New York Times does, but you have pod save guys like Tommy Vitor saying you can't say that the future of American democracy is at stake and then tell anyone concerned about the debate last night to stop bedwetting or grow a spine. It's fucking insulting to people who care deeply about the country and know how much is on the line. Ben Rhodes, former Obama advisors, telling people they didn't see what they saw is not the way to respond to this. Nate Silver, who's actually said this before, Joe Biden should drop out. Again, of 538. And Ezra Klein has been saying, Ezra Klein had a whole thing about how Joe Biden, all these centrists. So here's my thing. Usually these are the people I don't trust. So should I? No, DSA is not people I don't trust. But anyway, it's wild how much the liberal establishment is now saying he needs to drop out. Just today, Representative Clyburn, said he would support Kamala Harris if Biden stepped down. And Democrat Lloyd Doggett is actually of Texas Democrat, is openly saying that Biden needs to step down. He said, quote, President Biden saved our democracy by delivering us from Trump in 2020. He must not deliver us to Trump in 2024. That's a lot of consensus. But it is still a risk. And I just want to show this because Joe Biden the next day was at a rally in Raleigh, which I can't believe I'm saying. At a rally in Raleigh. And he, it was during the daytime, so he was peppy, and he had his teleprompter, so he was on message. And this is how he defended himself in his debate performance. This is just a little bit of it. He said, look, I'm not a young man. I don't debate as well as I used to. And then this is how that bit ended.
I give you my word as a Biden, I would not be running again if I didn't believe with all my heart and soul I can do this job. Because quite frankly, the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high.
So despite all of that, he is saying he can do this job, and they are cheering, yes, you can. Now, I think we all remember that yes, we can was Obama's defining message, his theme, if you will. And it is so horribly ironic and embarrassing that, yes, you can is now the chant for convincing this melty brain octogenarian that he should stay in the race. I'm like, do we not see what's happening?
I mean, what has he even done in the past 4 years as president? Like, even like his horrible debate skills aside, his horrible performance, all that stuff, like, I don't know. He's done absolutely nothing to convince, I think, me certainly, but like, what has he even done?
I mean, that's fair. And the fact that you can't point to things other than maybe a genocide is really indicative. I have had the misfortune of having to defend Joe Biden's victories and the things that he has done, right? Whether it's the Inflation Reduction Act or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Plan and the American Rescue Plan, there have been good things. There have been the student debt relief. I know people who've had all of their debt wiped out completely. Some of this is being litigated.
What?
You can now.
Where's mine?
Right. And it could be coming. You got to look it up, but it's super piecemeal. It is very, very slow reform here and there. The Federal Trade Commission is doing incredible stuff, going after Google, Amazon, now going after Ticketmaster, going after these junk fees. Pete Buttigieg saying you get full reimbursement if a flight cancels on you. We're protecting the consumer. All of that is lost because, again, there is no message, and the messenger and the person at the helm is not there. And Prem, I was struck not by that chant, but by him saying, I can do the job. That's actually secondary to the real question, which is, can you win?
Yeah. I think many people have been calling for at least the question to be asked as to whether there should be a different nominee for months now, have been kind of shunned, ignored, punted aside, because I think a lot of people didn't have to viscerally confront what other people were maybe concerned about in months past. And at this point, I think, as you've noted, there's a wide spectrum of people asking the question now, because a lot of these people do, sincerely believe that Donald Trump presents a very big threat to this country, to people of all stripes, whether they're workers, whether they're members of the LGBTQ plus community, whether they're women, whether they're migrants, whether they're people of color, so on. You can just keep going down the list. And based on the 4 years we've already seen and Project 2025 and just the words he says, we know this to be true. And so now a lot of these people, I think, are just so much more incapable to either actively or just passively deny that, to your question, President Biden in his form as a messenger, which is a big part of the presidency, but a very large part of being a campaigner.
Yeah.
He be up to snuff. And if you believe all those threats and you see this person who might not be able to take it on, then naturally you would react in such a way. And especially, I mean, we'll actually be publishing a piece about this, probably within the next hour or so, but just the escalation, both of how quickly the dam has broken in terms of people either insinuating that, I'd be open to someone else, or outright saying, as Congressman Lloyd Doggett, the first member of Congress to do so, to say it's time for him to go. This is happening very quickly for good reason. And I think it's because more people are internalizing the fact that based on polls, based on perception, based on media coverage, both fair and unfair, to be also fair, Biden might not be set to make it happen in 5 months because, he's not getting any younger. And it's okay. Age happens to all of us, and we should embrace that and accept that, and also accept that sometimes it's okay to sit and relax.
Absolutely. Take a load off, retire, be the transitional candidate. And I think that's an interesting, in terms of like how it could all happen. There's an interesting discussion we have, and I'll show you one poll that has come out recently. But what could happen? The Democratic National Committee's official procedures at the convention adopted in 2022 give the committee the authority to choose a new candidate if either member of the ticket, the president or vice presidential nominee, withdraws or dies. So they're both, Kamala and Biden are in this detente here. You withdraw. No, you die. We'll see. Anyway, now, if it is Kamala Harris, all of Joe Biden's delegates don't automatically go to her, even if he endorses her. He has the power to leave the race and release all the pledged delegates. He has accumulated 3,894 of the 3,937 committed so far, according to the AP. During his march to the nomination, if he were to do so, those delegates would be free to vote for whomever they choose. That would lead to an open convention, a rarity in modern American politics, but not something that hasn't happened. It could be a brokered convention. In fact, up until the year, that's how we did it. That's how we used to do it. So I'm told by people who know history better than I do.
But he'd have to stand aside willingly for this to happen, right? And do we see that happening?
Have you tried to tell your parent that they just give them tips on driving and or maybe they shouldn't drive anymore?
Mm-hmm.
I've been driving for 70 years. That's the problem. But yeah,
right.
This is we will see. So everyone's waiting for the polls, and I didn't have this prep, but here we go. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is a new CNN post-debate poll, which arguably is people are hot and bothered, and is coming off of this really terrible performance. But pretty much in every single matchup, Trump is winning. These are all potential candidates, but he's winning by less compared to other candidates than to Biden. So Biden, 49% to 43%. Trump, Harris, 47%, 45%.
Ooh, only a 2%.
Hey,
little difference there.
So that's what people are freaking out about. Newsom, 43% to Trump's 48%. Buttigieg, 43 to 47%. I'm concerned about that missing point. Or no, Trump to Whitmer, 47 to 42%. But really, it's the Trump-Harris matchup that is looking the most interesting and appetizing. And honestly, I have to say, even though I really don't like Kamala Harris, it should be Kamala Harris. She's the fucking vice president. Doesn't that make the most sense? I don't know. Prem, what do you think?
Yeah, I think if they're just going for ease of both just procedural ease and logical ease, and probably given if there's a broker convention, I think Harris probably has the strongest shot. I also think based on this poll, but also previous polls, we've seen that this has been the case for a little bit, that a lot of the other candidates are either performing similarly or even slightly better than Biden against Trump. And that's with no campaigning, little to no name ID, and not taking into account that, as we probably feel that at least perceived, that many people in this country do not want a rematch between Biden and Trump. In some ways, for those who feel that the parties just kind of pick and choose, for some people, this feels like the third rematch of first it was Hillary Trump, then Biden Trump, then Biden Trump again. And so there's just a general fatigue that regardless of whoever they picked, if it was someone else, particularly someone that seemed active, behaved, and actually had younger ideas themselves, that would stick out a lot. And so these polls already are oh, well, Biden isn't necessarily the only candidate that could take on Trump. And that's, again, not without campaigning, not without name ID. And another thing, recently, or in the past, I don't know, time is such a wormhole now, but in the past months, Biden had said, I don't think I'm the only one that could win. I think others could win too. And then kind of just waved off to the next question. And it was okay, wait, if you think that,
then get out of there. Yeah. Go away.
To what you said, Francesca, this yes, you can mantra is so, very classically great, man. It's you don't need to do this again. If you believe the stakes that you hold true about how this election matters for millions and millions of people in America, and probably for millions across the world, it doesn't have to be you. No. If you think others could do it too, and if people around you are being honest about the situation, that, hey, it looks like, the odds aren't necessarily in your favor. But I guess that gets to something we might talk about a little bit later about just the insularity of this administration.
Yeah, you have a lot to say about that. And let's move on to it. I have more to say, and I will do so, tomorrow, and people can hear my thoughts. It's as Prem said, there's a lot moving really, really fast, and we'll see. But yeah, there is the I was just going to say the yes, we can line. It reminds me of, the United States men's team got knocked out of the Copa America, which I love to watch yesterday, and it was pitiful. And because they're not good, they're just not a good team. Sorry, they're not a good team, and they should be better. But I always hated the slogan for American soccer teams, which is "I believe that we will win." And you hear them say, "I believe that we will win." And it's always when the U.S. team is like 0-0 with Uruguay, which is a massively strong team. "I believe that we will win," and you're like, just don't say that. Don't say that, because it makes you sound like you're believing in fairy tales, and like I'm getting the same "I believe that we will win" energy out of the Biden campaign. And you won't. Uruguay will score an offside goal against you and whatever, but it's fine. But Prem, let's talk about your reporting, because you've had, again, speaking of misfortunes, but you've been going toe to toe. One of the many journalists, actually, that have been going at Matt Miller, who is the spokesperson for the U.S. State Department, that is charged with effectively doing PR on just a completely inexcusable green lighting of war crimes in Gaza on the Palestinian people there. And whether it is a hospital that is bombed, whether it is refugee camp, or in the case that you followed very closely, the murder of a 6-year-old and her whole family, it seems like we're always promised follow-up and investigation and accountability. But in 10 months now, we have not seen any of that when it comes to our greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel. Before I let you, actually, let me ask if you can just explain, who is Hind Rajab, and what was her story? Because she was killed in January, and it made national headlines. Tell us about her.
Yes. So I've lost count now. I'll have to do the math again, but 150, 160 something days ago, Hind Rajab and her family were fleeing a part of Gaza they were kind of directed to flee from. And she was with some cousins, other family members in this car, all packed in together, when all of a sudden they started getting fired upon. And so Hind and another 15-year-old child, another family member of hers in the car, Lion, they witnessed their family members get killed right in front of their eyes. And so they then called the Red Crescent, the Palestinian Red Crescent, to ask for help, ask for ambulance, ask for medics to save them, which already, for a 6-year-old child to know that, okay, upon this happening, here's what you should do, is one thing in and of itself. But there's these just awful call recordings of them pleading for help, in which you hear gunfire once again as Hind watches her other family member get killed right in front of her. And so
while she's on the phone.
Yes, you hear gunfire, screams, and then the call cuts. And then the second call is recording of Hind pleading for help. They both had identified that there were tanks in the area. They were pleading for help. And over the course of hours, the Red Crescent coordinated with Palestinian authorities and Israeli forces to organize a rescue. And so after 3 hours, I believe it was, medics were sent, 2 medics from the Red Crescent in an ambulance to save Hind. And after that, things kind of get mysterious. After days on end, Hind is missing. The medics are missing. And only after things were safe enough to go to and see the scene, we find that the medics were killed. Hind was killed. Hind's body was left in the vehicle as well. And so that was, as you said, at the end of January. I had spent the better course of 4 or 5 months since asking the State Department for updates on this, as well as an array, scrolls of other prominent human rights violations, alleged human rights violations. And over again, as you say, it was deferred. It was either deferred to Israel. They're investigating. They're looking into it. We haven't had answers yet. We'll have to look into it. We'll get back to you. Different sort of ways to not necessarily provide an answer quite yet.
Well, should I just play this clip before so we can plot out the story? So here's Prem over the course of like 5 months,
something like that.
4 or 5 months, asking Matt Miller, who I'm gonna get your thoughts on this guy, but about Hind's case and the murder and the investigation of her family.
For 2 weeks since Israeli forces attacked Hind
February
Rajab's family,
14th, if
killing
you're
her aunt,
listening.
uncle, and cousins, leaving her trapped alone in her vehicle. We heard her pleas to the Red Crescent Society. 2 medics were sent, all to be blown up allegedly by Israeli forces. I wanted to ask about the status of the inquiry into this, just because it seems if the Israeli government, which seemingly does have a pretty sophisticated operation, is prioritizing this, they don't already know which soldiers to interview, for instance. They have Red Crescent calls, timestamps, the location, the Red Crescent staff to, question and rely on. Plenty of material to figure out who exactly to inquire with and to figure out who to hold accountable. So I want to first ask about the status of this investigation.
Sure. So I think that question is appropriately directed to the government of Israel. I will say on behalf of the United States, we have made clear to them that we want that incident to be investigated. They have told us they are investigating it.
And then any updates on Hind Rajab's
Okay, so here's February 27th.
the investigation into the killing of Hind Rajab's family and the paramedics sent to save her?
I don't have an update. My understanding is that the investigation is ongoing.
It's been 110 days since journalist Samir Abu Daqqa was killed, 65 days since 6-year-old Hind Rajab, her family, the medics sent to save her, were killed. Per Sean and other colleagues' earliest question, today should be Shireen Abu Akleh's birthday, our Palestinian-American colleague, I might add, killed in 2022. So I'm wondering if you have
By the IDF.
updates on not just the investigations, but actual accountability measures in response to these. And if not, how can this administration's approach of relegating things to months-long investigations while not changing policy, all as thousands more are killed, be a justified approach? Secondly, it's been...
Okay, mic drop. I just want to stop there for 2 seconds because I thought that was when you took the gloves off a little bit and you're like, okay, let's bring up Shireen Abu Akleh and all the other, effectively you are calling out the State Department on simply relying on Israel and actually not following up with any of these investigations. Why did you decide to stick with Hind out of all of the awful stories that have come out? And yeah, what have you learned? I mean, what's become clear to you about the United States and their support for this genocide?
I think to answer the middle question first, I've been asking again about an array of different cases, and Hind just kind of, I guess, over time stuck with me. For one, just I think because of how affecting that case was. Not to say that all the others aren't as well, but I think over time it became clear that specifically really became one that was so kind of blatantly clear, as I had mentioned in the first question, that there's all these different ways that if the Israeli government wanted to investigate, they have a lot of tools at their disposal. I'm no military investigator. I'm just a boy. But, I kind of figured that there was some things there that, you could look to. And as days turned to weeks turned to months, it just became so... I kept going back to that first question of, you can investigate. If you wanted to find the answer to this, if this is a priority, if there was any sort of conversations about leverage, about, hey, if we don't at least get an answer to this specific kind of clear-cut case, we might have some conversations about weapons aid. If those were all the case, there would be an answer by now. But evidently, that was not the case. And so I think in that question, I think that was in April, I was kind of trying to, bring in these other cases that were also, quite troubling, horrifying, things that were kind of left open or left ambiguous.
Or that later in Shireen Abu Akleh's case, there was an admission that she was eventually killed by the IDF when they claimed that she was killed by, Palestinian militants or whatnot. And I mean, I think to your point, it's fear, because if they did do the investigation or an independent investigation, a real investigation, then what would it imply? What would it mean for them continuing to send money and weapons and support for this government? And that is an answer they don't want to know. So, I mean, that is so clear. And that's the thing. Like, first of all, I want to know how close Matt Miller is to resigning, because he gets grilled by y'all every single time, and it's so beautiful to watch. I love the Matt Lee, Matt Miller like matchup, but yours is also really up there. I mean, how much lipstick can you put on a fucking pig here?
Yeah. I mean, one other thing I'll add that I think speaks to some of this too is that a few weeks ago, I had asked once again about this, and he had said previously, I think 2 or 3 times before that, over and over again, that we have an answer for you. I'll get back to you about that. And then finally, I had asked about it again, and he had said that And another colleague had
we can
asked about
play
this again.
Here,
Sure,
let
I
me
mean,
play
days
it.
now since Hind
Sure.
Rajab, her family members,
We're
medics,
about to
and
get an
Sabre were
answer.
killed. So first question related to that is there an update on the investigation into that attack?
I don't have anyone. I'm happy to go back and get you the latest.
Okay.
May 9th.
So she's one of 14,000 kids killed. Israeli forces have killed those World Central Kitchen workers. Of course, there's 100 more. President Biden admits Israel has killed civilians with U.S. weapons. How did the U.S. feel comfortable sending Israel $17 billion if we can't get answers to any of this? And how can it justify sending any more weapons at this point? In 128 days now since Hind Rajab was killed, the medics and Sabre were killed. Family members, is there an update into this investigation?
Let me get you an answer on that and come back to you.
Okay, did you get an answer to that?
Yes, so I think it was a week or two after that when I had asked again, and another colleague had asked about it as well. Upon, to your point about an independent investigation, Forensic Architecture, a UK-based firm, had released an investigation that found 335 bullets were shot to the vehicle. It was not plausible that Israeli forces did not see who they would have been shooting, and that it was very likely that it had come from Israeli forces. So me and another colleague had both asked about this investigation and Israel's own findings. And they had said that Israel claimed to them that they've been working on the investigation. They say Israel told the State Department that there were no tanks in the area, and that the United Nations and the Red Crescent had not cooperated with their investigations. So to break that down, that is what the State Department said Israel said. And they made that very clear in their answer, I might add. Numerous investigations from the Washington Post, Al Jazeera, Forensic Architecture all had shown through satellite imagery that there were in fact armored vehicles in the area. To the point about, whether Israel had communicated with others about the investigation, I had asked, okay, so Israel told you that. Did you verify that the Red Crescent in fact didn't, pick up the phone and help them?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, that's not up to us. And I said, okay, well, I can try. So I later that day when I got back home, I reached out to the Red Crescent and said, hey, the State Department says Israel says this.
That they didn't cooperate with the investigation.
Yes. And the Red Crescent told me that the government of Israel never reached out about the investigation, about the incident. They had never had any sort of outreach, inquiry, let alone active requests for help with the investigation. And so, of course, this is now a he said, she said, but I apparently took more steps to verify a claim than the U.S. government did. And this is, again, 5 months after, again, me and other colleagues repeatedly asking about this. And so I think to your second question about, the people who get up to the podium to represent this administration, of course, that when they sign up for this job, and whatever you think about the what that entails, It is a hard job to know all these things, and to know how to dismiss things, how to avoid answering things, how to substantively answer things. The world is a big place, but to after that many months have chances over and over again to at least ask for even a more proper non-answer, and to then have an answer that after so much time breaks down upon the slightest provocation, that's a bit concerning, not necessarily just about the individual spokespeople, but about the broader administration, that given how many people work in this and how many probably well-meaning people work in this government, after all that time, there's still not even a plausible non-answer or a way to wave away what should be a very straightforward question generally.
It reminds me, I want to bring in Caitlin, and thank you. You know what? It reminds me of the line of questioning against Trump and Trump officials when they were asked where the children are that were separated from their parents. Remember how much journalists stuck with that? Where are they? Well, who do you know all of them? Have you accounted for them? No. And the answer was no, because the follow-up reality was that they didn't care. They didn't care what happened to those children or their family members. And similarly, they didn't care. They don't care if there are war crimes being committed. And Caitlin, I know you said that you haven't really been impressed by Joe Biden's tenure, but I know that you have spoken out, and I know that, it isn't easy to speak out about, or it's very easy, but not some, people get fucking bizarrely sensitive about what's been going on in Gaza. And it seems like this is an issue that is broken out. And I'm assuming hasn't endeared you to the old man as much, but I just wanted your thoughts on it.
I mean, it's I mean, yeah, it's one of the main reasons that I will not be voting for Biden. This is the first time I'm ever considering not voting for the Democrat in this, two-party system that we have. Which is actually just one party, and two little puppets who are playing their little puppet game. But obviously, I would never in a million years vote for Trump or anyone on the conservative ticket. But I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna not vote for either of the two major parties. And I've never thought about that or considered that before, but because of Biden's unwavering, unapologetic Zionism and his reluctance to listen to anybody who's saying, don't do this, please stop sending American weapons and American money to Israel,
including people in the State Department itself.
Right. So he's just like, no, I love being a Zionist and it's my favorite thing to do. And I am just going to keep enabling this war, this genocide. And so I'm just like, well, I can't in good conscience cast my vote for him. However, if he did step aside and someone else came, someone else was on the ticket, not that I'm like a fan of Kamala Harris, but I would be more likely to consider voting for her over Biden. I don't know. It's so disheartening.
Yeah. No, I think that's a real thought. And especially because, there's two ways that a Kamala nomination could go, meaning in terms of this issue, she either puts some daylight between her and Biden's position, which would be fucking fantastic, or she doubles, triples, quadruples down on Biden's position because she wants to be seen as Biden. And I think to our earlier discussion about the debate, it wasn't just the form and style, but it was also the substance. And part of that substance is this pig-headed course on Israel. Prem, I guess I wanted to ask you also about I was going to maybe talk about, this Israel going like, look, since you haven't stopped our war thus far, why don't we expand it? You know what? Why not just grow? And so, the hostilities between the IDF and Hezbollah are growing, and Hezbollah is now saying, yeah, we're game for all war. Iran's like, that would be this, if Israel were to start a war with Hezbollah, this would be like, what did they say? Like, I forgot, but they were basically like, yeah, end times, let's go. And, Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, is meeting with Lloyd Austin to game out different war scenarios between Israel and Hezbollah. And Yoav Gallant has an ICC recommendation for his arrest. So it is wild that we are being told that our democracy is so important and a rule of law, but on the international scale, we are flaunting and flouting international law just like Trump flaunts our domestic law. And I'm not saying they are the same at all. And I may, in fact, vote for Biden. But yeah, Prem, I think it's interesting from a journalist perspective to be in the room where these laws are being skirted and hear the excuses or lack thereof for why they are.
Yeah, I think to what Caitlin was kind of getting at, there's just a sort of puzzling nature to all of this, in which whether you care about this issue solely politically in terms of Biden's prospects to win, this is not good. Yeah. This is what many have warned for 8 months now, that this would spread into a regional conflict that only brings misery to everyone, that doesn't help anyone, that doesn't keep Jewish people safe, that doesn't keep Muslim, Arab, Palestinian people safe, that doesn't keep people in Israel safe. If you think, if you're someone that's concerned with it morally, and that way, those are sort of similar concerns, of course, obviously. Yeah. And despite that, here we are, as you say, on the cusp of perhaps an expansion of that regional war that people have warned about. And it's not only puzzling that it seems that American politicians are happily still co-conspirating / appearing alongside, welcoming, for instance, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Congress later this month. These people who have, arrest warrants being requested against them by the International Criminal Court's top prosecutor. There's not only that, there's also the fact that just, as is often the case, war, it's not good for anyone. And this is a very particular instance in which that is true, in that Hezbollah doesn't want this to continue. They've said that, they've claimed that
ceasefire.
That's what they're sort of justifying their action on. Israel does not have an incentive to do this either, just because Iran and Hezbollah are quite, formidable forces. And all while this is happening, we still have this muddied waters about the ceasefire. First it was introduced as something that was Israeli-led upon the Biden administration announcing it. Since then, after we and other colleagues have kind of pointed out that, is this really Israeli-led? Like, why did you announce it? Can Israel confirm this is theirs? It's now become the ceasefire on the table that Israel has agreed to. And now it's, in Hamas's court, which, even though the deal itself is quite similar to one that Hamas had suggested weeks prior. And now Israel is repeatedly saying, by virtue of Benjamin Netanyahu and other officials, that they will not commit to a ceasefire until their goals are achieved, which is the elimination of Hamas and so on and so forth, which, Hamas itself might not agree to as an entity that doesn't want to eliminate itself. But also beyond that, in a sort of realpolitik lens, even Israeli officials have admitted Hamas is more than just a group. It's an idea. It's you can't really eliminate an idea without necessarily creating the conditions for better ideas to prosper. And so there's this kind of like stalemate that seems to just allow the war in its current form to continue and sort of teeter between escalating or not. And it's unclear where and how and in what ways clear heads that really want things to de-escalate will prevail. Yeah.
I mean, and meanwhile, it's like the wider war is just, it's like you use every tool to be like, this is bad regionally, this is bad, politically, this is bad. But then, I wake up in the middle of the night with intrusive thoughts of the children starving in Gaza, who have, I believe it's this week, that like no more food, like the by the end of this month, it's not imminent, it's in famine, and so, I mean, and not just the children, it's all the people of Gaza. And so you're just like, it's compounded by the cruelty and not allowing humanitarian aid. And there is no excuse. I mean, you're just like, man, for the fucking world's sake, Biden should step aside because of what his administration has meant for our standing. Where Trump was all, getting rid of Trump was all about restoring our standing in the world. But those of us who actually hold people to the same standard are like, we have burned any bridge that we were trying to reconstruct or that we had, or you pulled out of Afghanistan only to, to triple down on this atrocity. But you're right about it limping along. I mean, it's just wild. And I thank you for doing the work that you're doing and holding, these motherfuckers they should be the ones who have intrusive thoughts at night,
We're all trying our best in whatever ways we can.
Well, let's wrap with something fun, because occasionally we'll do it when we have like a really sad episode. We'll do a segment called What's Good, where you just think of the good things in life. What are the good things? This is What's Good. So before we begin, I have to say that the alternate idea for the final segment was going to be Steve Bannon prison gang names. And I forgot that it wasn't, so I wrote some down.
Please share.
Okay. Because Steve Bannon is serving 4 months in prison for defying a congressional subpoena to testify about January 6th, blah, blah, blah.
If only he was president, then he wouldn't be prosecuted or jailed for anything.
I know. God, he also is one. Like, he might have to serve 4 months, but he's one anyway. Like, the administrative state is dismantled. Okay, so here's his prison gang names. One, I just think this is funny. Skin tag heads. I don't know if you'll understand this. You have to be a deep white supremacist too, but MS 14 words.
Jeez Louise.
14 words or some fucking anti-Semitic neo-Nazi shit.
Okay.
Nation of Islamophobes. that was like the third one I had to. It was not great. But anyway, what is good in my world is that Steve Bannon is in prison, and also that my kid is very adorable, albeit very whiny, and like screams like a little bitch. God damn, she screams. She's wonderful. She's not a bitch, but sometimes she screams. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Caitlin, what's good in your world?
Oh my gosh, here's what's good. And this is a recommendation for everyone. Watch Paddington 1 and Paddington 2.
You cannot get through a conversation with Caitlin without the Paddington recommendation.
Okay, here's the thing. The third movie is coming out later this year, and everyone needs to be ready.
Yes,
yes. Everyone needs to be ready for Paddington 3. Paddington Goes to Peru, or Paddington in Peru. It comes out in November. Oh yeah, he's going to Peru. He's getting back to his roots.
Learn Spanish?
I mean, maybe. I hope he's been learning on Duolingo or something. But yeah, he's going to Peru, and the whole family's there, and it's going to be hopefully good. I don't know. It's not the same director as the first two movies, but the point is, the first two movies are so incredible. If you just need an escape, a very uplifting, heartfelt, funny, well-crafted story, well-crafted movie. People like write these movies off because it's a children's movie. They're so smart, they're so funny, and they're beautiful, and those are the best movies ever made. The end.
Yeah, this is the second. I can't believe I haven't watched them. I also, now that I know that Paddington is Latino, like, vamos. I'm not, but Paddington is, so I can pass and role reversal. I don't know what shade of, brown he is. We don't have to debate. But I love that. Okay, Prem, what's good in your world?
I think I'm just so enamored that Caitlin is spreading the gospel right now, really.
Are you a Paddington head?
Oh, I'm a Paddington head, baby.
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about your relations to the movies. I had first seen them with my family. My parents really love, like, their preference of movies when we're watching movies is films that have live action animals or animated animals in them. And so Paddington, Peter Rabbit, like, the vibe, Alvin and the Chipmunks. And so we had seen
weirdly specific.
I mean, it's an excellent genre.
Good genre. Space Jam.
Oh yeah, I mean, totally. And yes, indeed, Paddington is indeed going home, which is why he's going to Peru. Yeah.
Yeah, Aunt Lucy is there. He's got to visit. Yes.
Is it like Paddington Volver? That?
Pretty much. He's going back.
Yeah. I'm not sure it won't be so glamorous, though, unfortunately. It's not giving like a travel show kind of vibe. I think it's more.
It's going to be, it'll be him. Yeah, right. His Bourdain. He's just like.
Yeah, I wish. He deserves
street
that.
Ceviche.
Mm-hmm.
He deserves that.
I fucking love it. Okay, so it's Paddington.
Yeah, I think that's
so
absolutely.
When Trump is reelected, now, Caitlin, when is it supposed to be released? Because it has to be well timed to
November 8th, 2024.
What?
Yeah.
Is that 2 days after the election?
Is that true?
Something. It's let me just double check this, but unless they push the date back, because that does happen sometimes, but Paddington.
I thought it was sometime right before / after inauguration time, which would also still be quite.
January 17th, 2025 is what I'm seeing. Okay, so after
they pushed it back.
After the second coup attempt, but this time it's Biden's thugs. Let's go.
Where were you on January 17th?
Exactly what. I was watching Paddington 3. There's no way. In fact, you can trace it back to the podcast on July 2nd where I was Paddington pilled.
That's
and then
right.
You can't prove that I was at the Capitol because I was watching Paddington.
Yeah, you got to get your AMC A-list stubs. You'll make the reservation for Paddington 3. It'll be there. You'll have the most solid alibi in the world. Yeah.
I love it. Even though I really should have been there anyway, just like I actually should have gone to see a movie instead of watch the debate. Prem Thakker, you're wonderful. Tell people where the people can people you and people your people.
Well, the people can people me on Twitter, Prem_Thakker, THAKKER, Instagram, PREMTHAKK. And yeah, I mean, if don't be a stranger, say hello.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Read Prem's work in The
At
Intercept.
The Intercept,
And
please read The Intercept.
yes, absolutely. Read and support The Intercept. And thank you so much. I hope you come back soon. And Caitlin Durante, where can people find you, follow your work, listen to you?
You can listen to my podcast called The Bechdel Cast, of course, named after the Bechdel test, although we do a much deeper dive into each movie that we cover, looking at the movie through an intersectional feminist lens. Francesca has been on an episode, so if you need a place to start, you can check out that one. Fried Green Tomatoes, if I'm not mistaken.
We did. It was like early pandemic or like middle of the
Yeah.
pandemic, and we went deeper than I thought. I was like, oh, damn.
We go deep. Yeah, so you can listen to that. You can follow me on Instagram. Is really the only social media platform that I really use, and it's mostly me doom scrolling. So I post things here and there, but it's mostly just me making myself really sad. So, and that's at Caitlin Durante on Instagram.
Hell yeah. And yes, listen to Caitlin's show. And I'm so glad we caught you because I know you guys were traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully people can catch you live at some point too. But take good care. Come back soon, Caitlin. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to read some comments and then fuck off into this good afternoon. Let's see. Robert, thank you for your super chat. Says the reason there are so many freaks and weirdos with political and civil power in America is the plutocrats who run this country want it that way. Yes, they designed it for themselves. Marcus Aurelius, I want to read that during the first song. John M. Biden can order SEAL Team 6 to do his job with complete immunity. I like that. And then before Prem goes, Prem, I love you. You're my hero, says Ariane Marshall. So Prem heard you. John M., I have a spare bedroom in Europe. That sounds creepier than it should, but I will take you up on that. It's in Europe. Have you heard of Europe? Locke Winston on Twitch, is Obama there? Is that who they're talking to? I don't know in terms of the Bidens, if they're talking to Obama. If Obama is pulling some strings, like telling Biden to not get out of the race, I don't know. I don't think we've actually properly not litigated, but had a post-mortem of the Obama administration, considering that Donald Trump came right after it. And that Hillary Clinton was a terrible nominee. But anyway, Mr. All Electric Car Lunacy says it was definitely a 9 p.m. showing of someone with a full-time early start job next to someone that's used to posting on social media until 4 a.m. Absolutely. It was just a very clear like night owl versus like morning person situation. Like it would be like me and Matt. If we had to debate, in fact, we do this a lot. I do stand up late at night. So my brain stops working around 10. Whereas like his brain doesn't start working until 2 p.m. So it's just, that's all it was. That's all it was, man. Steven Sayers, thank you for your super chat. Unlucky Super Sister says, SCOTUS now also prevents info related to executive branch powers being used in courts to prove corruption at all, effectively making Watergate legal. This is a very important point that you brought up that we didn't touch on. So what's really important to know is that any access or any evidence to whether an act is official or unofficial or within the perimeter of officiality, that cannot be entered if you are trying to bring a criminal case against a president. So how the fuck would you ever bring a criminal case against the president if no evidence can be entered? It's truly bonkers. It is king shit. It is legalized junta, legalized coup. Luke Winterwolf, I'm pissed I was nearly in remission from cancer. Was really looking forward to not having to live through a second Trump term. Damn it. That is a comment I don't know how to respond to other than saying, I'm glad you are in remission and God damn it, we're going to fight. We're going to fight for you and everybody else. And because fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Count Juan, I've heard Harris, quote, doesn't have the same views as Biden regarding Palestine. We'll see. Yeah, in fact, she sort of, I think she was at an event, and I believe it was a mostly, I'm going to misremember this, but it was like a mostly like black voters rally or something like this. And there was applause when she talked about Palestinian human life. And, again, don't quote me on it, but it was like, oh, was real energy. And then she immediately caveated it by saying something like, Israel has a right to defend itself. And everyone was like, oh, Jesus, here we go. But yes, it seems like she is not exactly the same. Lisa French, well, how am I supposed to vote for someone who's okay with the torture and genocide of Palestinians? If he steps down, I could vote for Kamala. Yeah, I mean, echoing what Caitlin said. You won't hear me making the case to not vote for Biden, especially in a swing state. However, I understand. William McGregor, thank you for your super chat. SCOTUS has made it legal to cause homelessness and prosecute people for being homeless, and now empowers the president to send in the National Guard off an entire homeless encampment. Happy 4th, expats. Does that mean you live abroad? In which case I'm jealous. And do you have the home in Europe? Secondly, yes, as Paige Omek, the producer on the show, has written about with Rowan, and we had them on before. This is it. It's illegal to be homeless. You can't sleep outside, and any conduct that a city or state or community takes against you is totally fine, because including in some states shooting homeless people. Because it is a crime in and of itself, the state of being sleeping outside. Benjamin Royal. Oh God, how can we let this happen? I started to weep on October 7th because I knew of the response. I'm never imagined. This brutality is the point. Thank you, Prem. Yeah, I think that, Ben, you hit at something that I think we all felt, and what sadly was misconstrued as somehow condoning the actions of October 7th, which was deep fear for the mass casualties that were about to come. Deep fear for the kinds of war crimes, the daily, unbelievably cruel instances of torture and murder that we've seen ever since October 7th. That's what we were reacting to. It was, this bloodshed is bad, and it takes place in a context and in a place where bloodshed and cruelty has become the norm. Why can't we change that norm? Let's see. I'm sorry. Fran SHK says, Fran, you describe your child like she's a Republican. She's a whiny bitch. She's all about grievance politics. No, she's lovely. She's just becoming two, and I'm very terrified because it is, I hear, terrible. But with this, let's go, people. It's the fart song. I want to thank everyone who's become a patron at $10 or more. Nobody. That's right. But you should. In order to get a shout out. This is very loud in my ears. I hope it's not as loud for you. I'm trying to turn it down. There we go. Okay. But thank you to D-Gentrified for becoming a member on YouTube. Thank you to Marcus Aurelius for becoming a member as well. Thank you over on Twitch. Robo Blake for resubscribing. Hypno Plays for subscribing. Asleep on the Balcony for subscribing as well. You guys are wonderful. And thanks to the big tippers. Jorge Pineda, Jazz Moral, JB, and Ruth RW. Love y'all. Thank you for supporting. I think that was for the live stream of the debate. Thank you to Paige Omek, to Maximilian Inhofe, and to Andy Vasoyan, our editor. We're streaming Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, but not this Friday because I'm on a little bit of a vacation. But tomorrow, definitely a bonus episode. And remember, until then, to fight the power, fuck the patriarchy, free Palestine, and don't just bitch about it, even though, my God, there's so much to bitch about. But be about it, y'all. Bye.